Meanwhile, the Trump administration is completely freaked out, it seems to me, by this Dr. Bright, who was the former director of the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, because he is coming out, he is testifying in the Senate, Republican-controlled Senate.
The
House. He is testifying in the House, not the Republican-controlled Senate, but the Democratic-controlled House, and good for them for holding some hearings. It also shows that they could hold hearings. But Dr. Bright is out there, and we have two clips. Which one should we play? They're both important, right?
Both important. 2 is the more shocking, and 3 is the more supportive, illustrative.
All right, let's go with 2 and 3. We'll play both these clips. So Dr. Bright is in charge of BARDA, and they do all the research and development for vaccinations in the U.S. government. He's now been fired because he wasn't on board with the hydroxychloroquine push. But he was also the guy who early on was securing PPE and floating it up, and his superiors, not at BARDA, but in the Trump administration, said, no, we don't want any of that stuff. Here he is talking about those issues right now with Congressman John Sarbanes.
I am sure there are specific conversations, emails, moments in time that you remember like they happened yesterday. The inflection points where if the response to your warnings had been heeded, things might have been different. And I'm sure they haunt you and keep you up at night. From January of this year, tell me about just one specific moment when you had that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach because you were not seeing the response that you knew needed to happen.
Congressman, I'll never forget the emails I received from Mike Bowen and indicating that our mask supply or N95 respirator supply was completely decimated. And he said, we're in deep shit. The world is, and we need to act. And I pushed that forward to the highest levels I could in HHS and got no response. From that moment, I knew that we were going to have a crisis for our healthcare workers because we were not taking action. We were already behind the ball. That was our last window of opportunity to turn on that production to save the lives of those healthcare workers, and we didn't act.
I mean, there you have it. I mean, this is why the Trump and Alex Azar in particular are freaking out about this. Alex Azar is out there like a gnat, at these, and Trump is making them come out and address this. That's how you know they're pissed, because they're basically saying, like, this is your mess. You're going to clean it up. Here is Dr. Bright saying the administration making it very clear. They were warned in January. We need PPE. We need respirator masks. We need gowns. We need, gloves. We need this stuff. And the administration was like, almost like pathologically refusing to get this stuff.
Repeatedly, but were ignored by the senior leadership at the Department of Health and Human Services. Please explain what steps that you took and the response you received.
We knew going into this pandemic that critical medical equipment would be in short supply. I began getting alerts from industry colleagues in mid and late January, telling me that from an outside view, from the industry view, that the supply chain was diminishing rapidly, telling me that other countries that we relied on to supply many of these masks were blocking export and stopping transfer of those masks to the United States. I learned that China was trying to buy the equipment from the United States producers to have it shipped to China so they could make more. In each of these alerts, and there were dozens of these alerts, I pushed those forward to our leadership in ASPR, to Dr. Cadillac and his senior leadership team. I pushed those warnings to our critical infrastructure protection team. I pushed those warnings to our strategic national stockpile team, who has the responsibility of procuring those medical supplies for our stockpile. In each of those, I was met with indifference, saying they were either too busy, they didn't have a plan, they didn't know who was responsible for procuring those. In some cases, they had a sick child and would get back to it later in the week. A number of excuses, but never any action. It was weeks after my pushing that finally a survey was sent out to manufacturers or producers of those masks, a 5-page survey asking producers or companies if they actually made those masks.
I mean, what else? What's, you're in charge of the health, personal protection equipment, national stockpile. Like, that's your one job. How do you not have time to deal with what is coming in? It is because the administration from top to bottom was basically putting out, we're not going to take this seriously. It's going to go away. Like, the president doesn't believe in germs that can actually, doesn't believe in infectious disease, doesn't believe in pandemics. There's a hostility to the functioning of government and science. And that's what you get. They don't do anything. And this is the stuff that, I mean, the Democrats should be doing this every day, because there are a dozen of these people, at least, who have these stories to tell about how Donald Trump and this administration, look, you can't stop a pandemic, but you can seriously diminish and mitigate. And all of that was blown out the window. And now they've just chosen to, like, let's just blow through it.
They're reaching across the aisle, right? Like, if Democrats believe that the virus is real and Republicans believe that it's a hoax, or maybe like God is just punishing the weak, it's some sort of like spontaneously generating disease that's not a pathogen. The truth is that it's like somewhere in between those things.
That's right. It could be a disease, but it's not that contagious.
It's just enraging to hear him talk about how industry contacted him to be like, hey, we got a problem on our hands, for him to send it up the chain of command and then just have them send out a survey like, hey, is this a problem that you've already said is a problem? Just beyond.
Right. And then the question becomes, I think you get the sense that when that gets shot up the ladder, they're like, I don't think this guy knows anybody in the administration, so we're certainly not throwing our business there.